Joining me today is Dr. Shuvendu Sen, MD. We're going to be talking about his new film, Broadway, Bars, and Fortune. As communities search for more effective ways to support people returning home from prison, one unexpected solution is taking center stage, literally. Theater programs are emerging as powerful tools for restoring confidence and helping the formerly incarcerated reconnect with society. That transformative potential is the focus of Broadway, Bars, and Fortune, an award winning 40-minute documentary from director and producer Shuvendu Sen. Broadway has become, says he, an emotional point of rehabilitation. This film shows how theater, both inside and outside prison walls, can serve as a powerful healing tool, one that reduces trauma, crime, and recidivism. The film chronicles the work of the Fortune Society, one of the nation's most respected reentry organizations, and the life-changing impact of its theater programs, where storytelling becomes a pathway to healing, empathy, and employment. Dr. Sen has been featured on CNN, PBS, CBS, and many, many other media outlets. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sen.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure
And
to
thank
have
you
you
for
here.
inviting. I'm sorry?
I said it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, I have to ask you, is this a very unique perspective? And if so, why haven't we been doing this? This is 2025, like having programs such as this. I know the Fortune Society does a lot. So let's talk about specifically what this means. People who have been in prison for decades come out of prison, and then what? The recidivism rates are great, right? And what you're doing helps to prevent this in a very,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this has been, going on, I would say, in very short spells in certain areas. I know in certain prison system in Europe, in UK, for example, there's an organization known as the Kessler Arts, and they actually also promote art to incarcerated men and women, but not in a formal way. And I always, for me, medicine was not just patient care. For me, medicine is also advocacy, and I always wanted to blend uh, advocacy with artistry. And so when I was, affiliated with New Jersey Reentry Corporation, which is another great, profound organization that rehabilitates formerly incarcerated men and women, I had a first-hand experience of what prison violence is, and the ambience and the acceptance culture of sexual misconduct that goes on a regular basis, and this us versus them kind of a culture, and that particular organization was run by the former governor of the state of New Jersey, Jim McGreevey, and so we worked very closely. And through Jim McGreevy, I came to be in touch with David Rothenberg, who's the founder of this Fortune Society in New York City. And when I started attending their what they call as Thursday meetings, every Thursday, all of us would get together. David with all the former inmates. I was completely, overwhelmed with emotions and simply delighted when I saw the angle that David was taking, which is theater workshop. And I thought that's from a physician's point of view, I thought that's a very profound way of healing these people. Far often we use words which are very inadequate. We use words like correctional officers, and correction centers. But you don't have to correct them. And it's not easy to correct these individuals. They are born out of violence. There is violence in their family, which actually brought them into violence, into the world of violence. And when they go back to prison, go into prison, there's again violence. So what would you expect of that individual when he's let out of the prison after, say, 10, 15, 20, 25 years?
Yeah, and I'm going to
No,
stop you there because I think that's an important point, that intergenerational, you're talking about violence, but kind of intergenerational criminals. I saw the film, which is that obviously we're going to talk about that, but I mean it's really raw. And one of the prisoners who is one of the gentlemen in the film, that's what he talks about. His father was a criminal, he's a criminal, and his son was to become a criminal. So it's sort of breaking that I'm calling it intergenerational trauma.
mhm, right, right.
Yeah.
And I thought there are, of all the ways that we can rehabilitate them, I thought that art was a very profound way. And I'm a big fan of the word healing, and
You're a
I think
doctor.
yes,
So
and
doctors are
far
healers.
often,
Yeah, right.
yeah, far often we go for treatments and management, very cut and dry, but we forget that when it comes to care or patient care or anybody caring anyone, victims of trauma, uh, cure and care must walk hand in hand.
Yeah.
Science and arts
Yeah.
must walk hand in hand.
And when you say science and art, I'm thinking about something else too. And as a physician, you heal people and then you tell them, obviously, give them guidance in terms of what they're supposed to do to continue to be healthy. But it's all kind of like, I don't want to say formulaic, but you kind of seems like you were touching on that. People come out of prison, they all have a different story to tell. It's not all the same.
Yeah.
They express it in a different way, and this gives them the opportunity to do that. And it's not just giving them a certain amount of money, clothes, and a place to live. It's much more than that.
It is much more than that. You're
Yeah.
absolutely correct. It's much more than that. This acceptance back into the society, it's not an accident. It's not going to come that easy. And
Let
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's talk about the film because I was, you have these four individuals, I guess it was three men and a woman who one had been in prison for what, 30 years?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, and well, maybe you should talk about the format of the film and how that came about.
Well, it was in a way, it was a little easy for me because it's not that, I had this grand idea and then I approached David and then I met up with this man and woman, then I started shooting them. The fact of the matter is that I have been and I continue to be affiliated with this wonderful organization. And I've been affiliated with this organization, well, I think since 2013. So I have known these people, we have gone out together, like me and Casimira Torres. So we lunched together, we dined together. So they know me very well as not as a doctor actually, not even as a healer or anything. No drama. They were just friends. With Wilma, for example, I'm great friends with Philip. I mean, he's a writer. So and I write. So both of us we talk about what story that I've written and what play he has written. So it goes back years before we contemplated shooting this film. So that part was very easy. Uh, all I wanted was basically their emotions to come out, and I kind of structured it. And I did tell them that it's good that we start from the roots, from your family and the challenges that you met in your family, and then very briefly about your journey, in between the family and the prison. I wasn't interested to go into the details of the crime. I don't think that helps. And then their life in prison and what happens when they come out and what qualities they had which helped them to come back to the society. And which is why David's formula, if I may use the word, or mission or his philosophy is so profound. He would tell me, and in fact, he goes on to say in the documentary too, he would tell me, Dr. Sen, when was the last time they actually got on a stage and got acknowledged for their qualities, applauded for their qualities? When did we ever think that these men and women can have qualities, and which they do have, profound qualities? I remember the first day when I went to Fortune Society to attend the Thursday meetings. I went with that air that I am the physician, I am the healer, and there are some very important words that I have to say. But I'll be honest with you, Kathryn, when I was sitting, I remember 2013, and they were talking amongst themselves, I felt that I am surrounded by a group of philosophers. They are so deep, so genuine. Their integrity is so honest, and their words are a true reflection of what they have in their heart. And I decided, I'm not going to speak a word if it does not improve upon my silence. And I just kept quiet the first day. And then David turned around and said, Dr. Sen, you're here with a purpose. You're very quiet. I said, you know what? I've just enriched myself. I'm just a better human being just by listening to this men and women talk for the last 1 hour. So this is an organization, and no comparison, but this is an organization that really touches deep. And my film is a reflection of that. You must have noticed that there is no narration, there's no narrator, there is no voiceover. I let them talk. I just went through, since you're asking about the format, I went through very shortcuts, and I kind of went from a short scene to another short scene, which is basically them, and I kind of entwined it with David Rothenberg and some very well-known Broadway and Hollywood actors who had shown a tremendous amount of interest in what David does.
Yeah. So you gave a context for their stories, yes, with
Yeah.
yeah, and it made me sad. I mean, it made me. It had, I guess, a whole gamut of emotions. I mean, it was joyful in a way, but then it was so profoundly sad. I mean, I thought of these talented, smart people sitting in prison for 30, 20 years and then coming out and, sharing their stories. And you talk about the power of healing, not just, I mean, for everyone, for themselves, for their audience. Who are the audience? Let me ask you this for this. I mean, where is the film going to go? Who should be seeing this?
So before I answer this question to you, let
Yes.
me, that will help me to answer this. I went with this group, uh, this four of them and David, to various places where they would enact out this particular play called The Castle, where they actually all, as my documentary shows, a little bit of bits and pieces of their acting on stage. And there's no drama there. They just, as David explained in the documentary, he kind of fashioned it after the vagina monologue. And the play was just about men and women sitting on the stage and talking. And so David's philosophy was, since their words are so powerful, their stories are so powerful, their message is so powerful, I don't need anything else on the stage. I just need these people to sit on the stool and just talk. So I have accompanied them to multiple shows, and their plays were enacted out in front of audience which would comprise of, like we would go into a library. Very recently, we went to a library in Connecticut. And so that's one venue. We would go to the addiction centers. And believe it or not, this particular play, The Castle, was even staged off a Broadway show. And we'll go to schools, we'll go to colleges, we will go to public places. And so I would imagine my documentary to be shown in those areas. I will share one great story that I have. One of the most memorable venues that I have been with them was actually at Rikers Island, where they came from. So that was 2021, when we were just coming out of COVID. Well, not really. We were getting into the Delta part of COVID then. We all had our masks on. So we jumped into an NYPD van with all permissions cleared and sought. And we, five of us, myself, David, and the four actors, we took the NYPD van and they drove us to right inside Rikers Island. And it's very interesting. I could see the change in their emotions, and I filmed it through my cell phone because they were very chatty, very excited about this play, which they have been doing it for the last 15 years. But the moment the NYPD van, came close to the Rikers Island, I could see a complete transformation in their faces. They were like thrown back into the dark days. Their words dried up, their faces stiffened, their fists clenched, and they just stopped talking to me. And when we entered into the correctional facilities, they were different men and women. So, but that was a great performance by them. Eventually, when we got into the auditorium, and to answer one part of your question, who were the audience there? Correctional officers. The same officers that quote and unquote disciplined them, they were there. It was a packed hall. And wow, it was a great performance. They poured their heart out. And when it ended, there was the usual thing that I always see, complete silence, and then that eruption of applause and screaming. And it's all coming from the correctional officers. So it kind of hits them in the gut, their stories, their, as you said, their sad journey, that they are all capable of doing miracles in life. They were all blessed with qualities, and yet they never got the opportunity.
What
So
do you
yeah,
think did you talk about the impact with them, the impact that they had on the correction officers, or does that,
that
yeah.
was part of that. That was part of that, where we talked about the prison violence and how it absolutely does not help. It does not help to see these words, as I started by saying that these words like correctional officers, correctional centers are wrong words. These are very inadequate. They're insulting. You don't need to correct them. You need to heal them, right? And it's not that they are the ones who did violence. They were born in an ambience of violence, and it's almost given that they would get into violence. So to bring back that non-violent person from them, we don't need to correct them or discipline them. It only makes it worse. Violence breeds violence, as Mahatma Gandhi once said. If one eye for another eye makes us both blind. So that's what's happening. There's so much of prison violence, so much of correction, so much of discipline that when they come out, they're more violent. And the recidivism that you were saying, that's all the more. And the United States is the number one country in the world where there's the highest number of crime and the highest number of getting back into the prison system, because there's so much amount of correction, emphasis on correction. So rather than
what about I'm going to interrupt you, but what about the powers that be who continue this whole scenario? Correction officers, we have to correct people. We know it doesn't work. We have the statistics. It's not as if, we don't have those statistics. The recidivism rate you say is the worst. We have the worst in the world, or we're the biggest, I don't want to say perpetrators, but we have our recidivism rates are horrific. So
yes.
what keeps us from doing, well, taking a look at what you're doing, for instance, and you say, you've been around to quite a few places. I mean, is there pushback?
It's a pushback. It's a very strange stability that we believe in. Kathryn, I may be at a loss of words. Could be nonchalance, could be just we don't want to adopt something which is new, or it could be a lack of awareness. I think we need more documentaries like that. I remember I wanted to write a book because I was just then coming out of a very successful book that I had written on Alzheimer's and meditation. So I had good publishers at hand. And that's how I approached David. And I said, you know what? I want to write a book about Fortune Society. I want to write a book about this. And he said, good luck, because he himself had tried with many publishers. And sure enough, when I approached the publishers, they were like, Dr. Sen, Alzheimer's and meditation was much more catchy, much more relevant. This may not be that relevant. And I said, are you kidding me? This is a national disaster, not just in my country. It's in Europe. It's in Asia for sure. And so that's when I dropped the idea of writing a book on that and took that audacious step of actually directing this. So yeah, it's a bit of all that you and I are discussing. It's a lot of inexplicable nonchalance and this inability to take the next brave step. That yes, let's bring art inside the prison walls. Let's bring theater workshop inside the prison walls. It would be so good for them to sacrifice their identity. Oh, you're criminals, and adopt another identity, another character of another play, of another short story. And that's a tremendous catharsis, as far as I'm concerned. So I think we are not being scientific. We are not being scientific. We are not understanding the genuine depth of their hurt.
Yeah. So you're saying the first step, first of all, is awareness, right? You have to be aware that there is a problem and to accept that there is a problem. I'm a social worker. I mean, the film should be shown in every school of social work, undergraduate and graduate programs and PhD programs. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. In fact, we are in the process of having our first screening at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and I'm very happy about it. And so we are in the process of just fixing the date. It's agreed by by all of us. And I think that's what is required. And I'm very happy to say that even in United Kingdom, they have this organization of criminal alliance, and they're in cooperation with the Ministry of Justice in UK. They immediately liked the film and they immediately sought my permission to screen it. So I'm actually getting far more and quicker responses from the country across the ocean than in this. But I'm hopeful. I mean, I was just chatting up with Winthrop Roosevelt. He's the great great grandson of the United States President Theodore Roosevelt, and he also works with criminal justice. And he showed tremendous interest. He says, Shuvendu, just bring it on. Invite me to this John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and I'm going to take it there, and I'm going to advocate for it and spread it around. So I think the train has just left the station,
Yep.
and going by the responses that I'm getting, not
And
just
led
from
by you, you're the point person, you're the engineer.
well, well, I think it's led by David Rothenberg. It's
Yeah.
his mission, it's his philosophy. I only documented it in a documentary. But yes, being a physician and affiliated with his organization, and also, as I said, I'm a tremendous, I love to blend art and advocacy. Um, I think, all of us, including you, we are all champions of this philosophy, and that needs to go out to the streets.
Yeah, it does need to go out to the streets. And well, it sounds like you are getting there. Do you have any connection with the university at Albany, for instance, the criminal justice, Rockefeller College of Criminal Justice?
No, not as yet.
Not yet?
I'm looking for a connection.
Ah, well, maybe, yeah, we have to talk because, I mean, that would be a perfect film for them. And that's part of it, the School of Public Health, the School of Social Welfare, where I graduated from, they're all combined to present these kinds of programs. So we got to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to get back. Maybe we've got a few more minutes in this seg, but like how you're a physician. I think I read it in the beginning. You're also having done this film. Did I see that you filmed it with a cell phone, or did I read that? I was looking at the credits. No.
Cell phone was just a part, but we used the other Sony cameras. So we had two cameras, one for the short angle and the other for the establishment shot or the long shot. So basically, we used two major Sony cameras, but there were certain shots that I had to do it through the cell phone because I could not take the whole crew with me. For example, the Rikers Island shot, the way I ended it, that had to be on a cell phone because they're not going to allow my crew to be there in Rikers Island. I'm more than happy that they allowed me to film it, but through my cell phone. So some of the shots are cell phone, others are standard cameras that we used.
When you finally make the connection, what's the one big, would you say, pushback that when you present it? Does it have to do with financing, marketing, or it's not something that we needs to be done? You know, what are
Yeah,
the
I know. I think that's a great question, but a very uncomfortable question because I have to tell you the truth. My entire struggle was not with my excellent inmates turned actors, certainly not with David, certainly not with Fortune Society. I'll tell you the people who supported me, but let me answer your question. My greatest struggle was finance, yes,
yeah.
because I needed I needed a budget, and so I spread my wings, and the responses were not good. People probably did not feel that deeply that this was a documentary which is more of a social justice film rather than just going to film festivals and getting awards.
Yeah.
And so we struggled. So I kind of paid out of my pocket and I started the show and I said, this cannot wait. And David is very funny. David is 92 years young, and David would say, Shubhendu, you don't have much time.
Yeah.
I don't have much time.
Yeah.
You better.
Time is of the essence. We got to do it, and we have
Absolutely.
to do it now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
let's we started right in the middle of the winter.
well, we're going to stop now just for a couple minutes, and then we'll come back because I want to. There's lots more to the story, lots more to your story.
Sure.
Yeah. Joining me today for the second segment of our show is Dr. Shuvendu Sen, producer and director of the award-winning documentary Broadway, Bars, and Fortune. This is a transformative piece, the focus of which the film chronicles the work of the Fortune Society, one of the nation's most respected reentry organizations, and the life-changing impact of its theater programs, where storytelling becomes a pathway to healing, empathy, and employment. Okay, so Dr. Sen and I are continuing our conversation. My question was like, what's your background, your history? How did you get into this? As you say, science and art, there has to be a combination, which to be honest, I don't know many doctors who do what you do, or many theater people who are physicians. So tell us your story.
Well, I was born in a family where my father was very famously a well-known scientist and an engineer who held very high positions in Indian government. Uh, and my mother, she was an artist that, as also a poet. So it was almost given that I will grow up learning how to reason on one hand and how to rhyme on the other. So so this ability to analyze on one hand and to indulge, which is not to say that art is indulgence. There is a lot amount of discipline, but you do understand what I'm trying to say. That
Yes.
to the mathematical eye, 2 + 2 is equal to 4. But from an artistic point of view, 2 + 2 often becomes 5. So I grew up, between 4 and 5, and I was into writing from a very young age, and I wrote poems, I wrote fictions, non-fictions were published, and I was hooked onto arts, and I carried the same trait here when I came to this country in the United States, which is why I can hold two positions very easily. I'm the vice chair of research and academics in my university. And in recent years, I held the trustee board position in the Bryant Library in North Carolina. I'm sorry, at Long Island in New York. It's a very famous library where we talk about, Shakespeare, Shelley, and Keats. So I always felt comfortable with these two worlds. And as I said, when I grew up from the medical world, I could realize uh, the shortcomings of just treatment. I realized that when it comes to healing, more than just treatment, love and respect must walk hand in hand. Arts and science must walk hand in hand. Cure and care must walk hand in hand.
Did you
And
go to medical school in India, or when did you come to the United States? And I'm curious as to you talk about, healing and respect and trust and all of those things with your patients. Is there a different, would you say, well, I don't know when you actually came here, but a difference in the medical tradition in India as opposed to the United States?
well, at a certain level, there is no difference. But I think India is a very emotional country. There's lots of challenges. Um, you know, uh, so India is a place where you have uh, warmth, luxury, and comfort hand in hand with cold, starvation, and poverty. So there's lots of areas to be emotional, improve. One of my greatest experience was when I was coming back from school, and we got stuck in a traffic, and the driver said, "Look at the right," and I saw Mother Teresa, and because she settled down in Calcutta, which is the city that I come from in India, and the Missionaries of Charity is a very big organization, and I'm proud to say that I was a part of that. And I worked through a sister concern of Missionaries of Charity for patients with tuberculosis and leprosy. And so I saw Mother there, getting down from the Missionaries of Charity van, and then there was a child that was just lying on the sidewalk, and the way she stooped and picked up the child and threw all the filth and vomit, the way she planted a kiss on the forehead. I thought that I don't need to read any scriptures; it's right in front of me. So India is a very, it's emotional country where there's a lot of scope for healing, and sometimes healing precedes over treatment in this country. course, everything is under the microscope, which it should be. But I think a little bit of healing and emotions from the other side of the world would actually blend very well with the incredible advances that we have made in technology in this part of the world. So, yeah.
I was in India for, well, probably 3 weeks. That's not that long a period of time, and
Oh,
sort of
wonderful. Very.
fell in love with actually Mumbai. I
Oh,
love,
you were in Mumbai.
yeah, I
You
really,
should come to Calcutta also.
yeah. I mean, I mean, India is a continent. It's huge, right? So, we saw as much as we could see. But I think the one thing that kind of goes along with our talk, and we were talking, I was talking about this at dinner last night, actually, about the Sikhs and the food distribution of food to everyone,
Mhm.
all over the
Yes,
country, 24/7. Doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. I've never
yes.
seen anything quite like that before. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
there's no hierarchy. There is no you're above me or you're below me. It's
yeah.
like everybody gets in and everybody shares the plate.
But it also takes the organizational skills. It seems like, I mean, to me anyway, that everything is sort of done on time, very well organized. In terms of the food and how you get it, and I think of some of the chaotic organizations that we have here in the United States. But yeah, the organizational skills is very impressive.
Yeah, especially when you take into consideration the fact that there is a population explosion
Yeah.
in India. And so, yeah, there is very high organizational skills in, in some of the organizations in India. Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the story. So where does the Broadway bars and Fortune? Um, can we just maybe touch on the four individuals, the four people who are in the film? And as you
Yeah.
said, we don't have to. You don't want to necessarily focus on why they were incarcerated, but they're all very different in terms of what they bring to the table. And
Yeah.
the unique qualities. Let's talk about that.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, each of them is a story. And I was telling Vilma that, I'm going to see how this film goes. Well, it's going very well. But I'm very tempted to have a separate documentary on each one of them. And to be honest with you, Kathryn, it's not even the tip of an iceberg that comes out in the documentary because I just didn't have the luxury to have a full blown, hour and a half. I would have loved to do that because I know their stories. And each story is a fascinating story, a fascinating journey. I mean, for example, and as you correctly say, we need not go into the details of their days with violence. But for instance, Philip Hall, he was in solitary prison and he says that publicly in my documentary too, for 30, 35 years. But just think about it. He's there in the dark room, but somewhere inside that dark room, inside that dark human beings subjected to such definite darkness, there is a writer. And he actually pleaded with the officers, the correctional officers, that I love to write. Can you give me a piece of paper? Can you give me a pen and a pencil? I would like to write. And he wrote that play. Now you're looking at someone who doesn't have a background, right? He's never been educated. He's never taken a major in playwriting or English. Forget about any graduate courses. And he writes it. And the story goes that NYU, New York University, sent some people to just go and talk to the inmates and educate them on how to do a play and all that. And he said, I have written a play. Would you like to take a look at it? And so they were a little skeptical for obvious reasons. And they said, okay, give it to us and we'll show it to our professors. You're not going to believe this, Kathryn. This young boys and girls, the students, they went back to the Tisch School of Arts uh, at NYU, and they showed it to their professors, and they were like astounded. They said, "Forget about correcting this. Who is this guy?
Hmm.
How could he come out with such a mature piece of screenplay?" And Philip, he still gets emotional when he says that. I'm in the dark cell, Dr. Sen, and here I'm hearing from there that my written play is being enacted out. in an off-Broadway show. And he feels so good about it. And of course, David was in touch with Phil during that time. And David is also the radio host of a very well-known WBAI program, which he does every Saturday. So David was actually talking about Phil and how Phil is writing the play, and that it's enough is enough. He should be out of the prison system because, he's never going to go back if he's given the right appreciation for a writer. So that's Phil's story. And then Easy, as you touched upon the fact, it's so hard for Easy. Easy was actually a very bright kid. He went to a special school. But then look at the violence that he's born with. His father went to jail, and it's not a surprise to you and me that his son also went to prison. But he had a great voice. He's a great singer. And he sings, actually, I think every Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, he sings in one of the centers of Fortune Society. And as you would see in my documentary, I filmed that part. And he's also a great actor. He's acted in Central Park in the Delacorte Theater, and he's got a great voice. And so
You
that's
know
the
where he
story
should
of
be singing? He should be singing in assisted living facilities and nursing homes where people are starved for music and connection. Yeah.
what a great thought. What a lovely thought. I'm going to share this with David, right when I meet him day after tomorrow. Absolutely, yes. And it's going to be a therapy both ends because he's dying to see, because that's his new identity. He wants to forget the identity that he's always known, that he was incarcerated, he was this and that.
Yeah.
He wants to be known as a singer. He wants to be known as an actor who can also sing. And then for example, Casimiro Torres, his story is horrific. That's out also in the documentary. He was born out of a family that's divided. His father left him when he was only 2 years of age, and then he and his twin brother fell into the hands of the mafia. They were somewhere in Brooklyn, and what they did was brutal. They would make these two twin brothers who loved each other to death to fight. They created a space surrounded by chairs and tables, just like animals fighting, and they would bet on these two brothers, and they would get money out of it. And it will only stop when someone is badly injured or is bleeding. And then they are let out, and they would take care of each other because their mother was completely alcoholic. And after 2 to 3 days, they're pulled back into the fight. And that's how people made money out of these two kids fighting against each other. So that's the type of violence Casimiro Torres, was if I may say, baptized into. So it's, as I said, it's a given that he will get into violence. But then they look at the other end of the story, the grateful, gracious end of the story, Kathryn, where he says that, after 30, 40 years, his father has left them, settled in Florida, married again, and he had a daughter. So his stepsister was searching around because his father always used to say that I miss my two sons and I don't know where they are. I have tried to go back and I don't see them. And then his daughter found out, Casimiro's stepsister found out that there is a play going on. It's called The Castle. And he came back to his father and he said, Dad, is this the guy? Because you used to say you named him Casimiro. And then he looked at it. He said, I don't need anything else. This is my son. So they called him, and he said, can you show me a picture of, my father or your father? And when he saw the picture, he was in tears. He said, he looked exactly like my twin brother. And I knew that I found my father. So he traveled all the way to Florida. And you would see in the documentary, because every time he tells me the story, he cries. So they celebrated his birthday but it wasn't his birthday. But there were so many birthdays that were missed. So the dad decided that I'm going to celebrate a birthday. And they hugged each other, and they are now in great touch through this play, through David's Fortune Society. And then Wilma is also such a painful journey, but such a lady whom I look up to. I mean, obviously she got into, drugs and et cetera, et cetera. And then, she had her moments where she found herself waking up besides a restaurant, and she said, Doctor said, I don't even know, was I raped? Was I hurt? Was anybody violent with me? I had no idea. All I knew that I was in the company of bad men. And then he shares that story, that poignant story in my documentary, where and she says that the only person that she thought she loved, her husband, the husband took a fine time to let her go and divorced her right in the middle of when she was serving a sentence, and then she was all by herself. But she's a feisty character.
But
She's
I,
not
in
going to.
that particular segment, I thought I mean, she's wonderfully dramatic. I love listening to her. But she
Yes,
talked about how she said she was never going to sign the divorce papers while she was in prison because who would she be if she
yeah,
wasn't married to him? But then when and maybe I have this wrong, but she then did sign the divorce papers and then she was
yes.
free. Then she was free to be herself, to look to herself rather than to him.
Absolutely correct. And the prison counselor actually had told her when she said, "Who am I if I'm divorced?" Because such was her insecurity, and she was then told, "Well, you're Vilma," and that's when she focused on the word Vilma, and she grew up from there. And she's such a talented actress, and she joined the Fortune Society. Um, she was in many HBO shows and she continues to act. She's a fantastic actor, such quality. And when Cass actually tells me when Richard Gere, just drives up in Harlem and right in front of Photo Society and says, "I want to meet Casimiro Torres." That's one of these best days because Richard Gere was obviously very interested with this Fortune Society, and he was then making a film, and he used Casimiro Torres as a research candidate for authenticity purpose, and many other actors. I mean, he's got pictures to die for. I mean, actors who have driven all the way down just to meet with this characters like Dustin Hoffman and so many of them.
All the big, famous, well-known celebrities. So the fortune. I mean, we don't have much time left. So let's the because not. I don't know how do a lot of people besides obviously the celebrities and the people in the know about the Fortune Society and what it does and
Yes,
what it's
a
done
lot
and
of people.
accomplished.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, a lot of people. Even John Savage, the famous Hollywood actor who endorsed my documentary. John Savage was aware of Fortune Society. David actually thinks that many years ago, John Savage had come to Fortune Society. He's not 100% sure, but he said, "Shuven, it looks like he might have come." But there are so many fine men and women who have walked through, like Christine Ebersole, who's in my documentary. She's a two-time Tony Award winning actress, and she was very famously in the Oscar-winning film Amadeus, and also Marsha Kurz. A drop of a hat, they all agreed to me. And the greatest part is that these great actors and actresses, they never charged a dollar because I told them I'm broke. It's on a shoestring budget, like a tattered shoe and a twisted string. And, and they said, "Don't worry about it, Doctor Sen. It's the message. It's the message that you're bringing us, and we are ready. We will jump in." And I think before the show ends, I would be doing a great disservice if I don't mention two people who had, without whom I don't think the documentary wouldn't have been possible. I approached another great friend of mine, Carl Bardosh. He's a professor of films at the Tisch School of Arts. And he's a very different kind of a professor of films. He's very well known in this country. And when I told him that I would like to direct it, he loved the story so much. And he said, "Go ahead, Shuvendu. Dr. Sen, you direct it and I'll direct you." So he's not just the co-producer of this documentary, he's been my mentor and a guide. I learned a lot about camera work, about editing, about so many things in the film. And my hats off to Professor Bartosz, as also for bringing in an outstandingly talented individual called Zoe Floros. They're both from Hungary. And Zoe's been a tremendous director of photography and also in editing. And we were just the three of us hitting the streets of the city and also Eric Kreb. He's a four-time Tony Award nominee. He's also the founder of the Eric Kreb Theater in Upper West Side in Manhattan. So he also jumped in and he said, I'm available to say anything in front of your camera," Dr. Sen. So it was a great journey for us.
And with so many, all these people that you're mentioning, so many talented, well-known people in the field. Well, the Tisch
Yes.
School, that's what the number one film school in the country, I would say, or top.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, exactly. So you had a lot of good mentoring, and to do this together. So in the end, now you may do other films, individual films with each one of those actors who were in this documentary. Is that it?
Yes, that's actually my
Is that the
goal because
goal?
as I told you, Catherine, that they would be equally powerful as this documentary of mine because it's only the tip of the iceberg. They have lots of stories to talk about the prison system, of their personal challenges that they went through and how they came out. They should be role models, not just for the other incarcerated men and women. I was just talking with another, radio show, and I was saying they are role models for me, and they should be role models for you and for everyone else to see how people can turn the corner despite all the trauma and the travails that they go through. So yes, that's my the other goal is to make a documentary for each one of them.
So the goal is to bring out all of the, think about, after seeing the film, all the talent and that we're missing out on. I mean, this is sort of winding up our conversation, but that are, I mean, just sit and you really get this, I guess, in the film. That's what made me sad, seeing these people sitting in a cell with all that talent and all of what they have to give, and it just sits there for years and years and years. We, we need not to do that, as you're saying.
So very well said, Catherine. That's it. I will not add anything further. If you remember Easy saying in the documentary, I'm 70 years of age and I'm just starting my life. Isn't
Yeah.
that sad? It's very hopeful. I'm thrilled, but look at it. He's starting his life, a person with such a great voice, certainly with such great acting qualities, and such a great human being. He's starting a life after 70 years of age.
Yeah.
So
And I guess the next question, maybe you don't have to answer it now. We only have a couple minutes left, but like, I really didn't get to this except like the response of all the families and you know, because that's a whole other story. It's their stories. I mean, when they come, from all of these individuals, what happened with the families and the connections and all of that. I'd be curious, or I'd be interested in finding out.
absolutely, it is on the way. It's my hope that this documentary will do its due diligence. It will travel the miles, and it will garner enough interest for us to have more awareness and have more documentaries like this.
Fantastic. It's been great talking to you today.
Oh,
And I do want to make
likewise,
that connection, yes, with the university, with the Rockefeller at the University of
I
Albany.
look forward to it.
Yeah. And yeah, I've been talking to Dr. Shuvendu Sen, and he is the director and the producer of Broadway, Bars, and Fortune. Thanks for being on the show today. Great having you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed every bit of it. Thank
Me
you
too.
again.